student and family for new student and family programs. And tonight we're going to talk about how our students are navigating the academic path here at American University. We've got with us Brianna Wiedoch, she's the Director of First Year Advising, Jimmy Ellis, the Assistant Dean of Undergraduate Education. Families, throughout this evening's event, you can submit your questions to us through the Q&A box that you'll see on your screen below. And this event will be recorded so you can view it again after the session is concluded. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Jimmy to get us started.
Great. Hey, everyone. This is Jimmy Ellis. Like Karen noted, Assistant Dean of Undergraduate Education. Happy to be joined by my colleague Brianna today to walk through some of the highlights of what your students are experiencing right now from an academic point of view. Going to cover a lot of ground tonight and leave a lot of time for your questions as well. So let's go and take a look at the agenda for today. First off, we're going to talk about some early milestones. What have your students been experiencing? Where are they at right now? We're going to talk about the immediate path ahead, what you can expect for your students. Staying on track, we'll talk about some of the support resources and things we have in place to help your students in their semester at AU. At the end, we want to kind of go over just a few kind of key things that we like to keep in mind when partnering with families, and we hope that you will as well. Brianna and I are going to go back and forth on our presentation today. I'm going to leave it to Brianna to take us into the next section. Hey, Brianna, let's get you unmuted.
Whoops. Rookie mistake on the Zoom. Good evening, everyone. I am going to talk through some of the early milestones that your students have been navigating and will be navigating coming up in a few short weeks. So we have welcomed them to campus and connected them with their first year advisor, gotten them settled into classes and their residence halls, and they've encountered their first assignments. This is going to be the first kind of stressor in their journey through their first semester and learning how to do college for the first time. Once that milestone is passed, they take a deep breath and then get ready to go into midterms. This can also be a very stressful time for students. We have been working with them in the AUX1 class to navigate the stress and to give them some tips and tricks for how to breathe through it and study successfully. Next up, your student will be registering for the spring semester. Most of the first year class will be registering in mid-November, and they will be meeting with their academic counselor as close to their registration date as they are able to get an appointment. So if your student is registering on November 15th, a November 14th appointment is perfect. And after course registration, they're going to head into Thanksgiving break. And then as soon as we get back, we're careening quickly into final exams. And so that will also be a bit of a stressful time for students, encountering their first finals in college, encountering their first large project due dates at the end of the semester, and know that their first year advisors are there to support them through this entire journey. Jimmy.
And we've just crested over the 6 week of classes. I think we're in week 7 right now. And just wanted to kind of give some things that we're noticing. Something that we're noticing right now with our students is that a lot of them are experiencing struggling with courses. And from the past, what we've noticed is students will often consider this to be a kind of a personal, individual experience. But we try to share with students, we'll share with you tonight, that in fact, by the 6 week of classes, nearly 60% of both new and returning students said they were struggling with one course. And in fact, a quarter of our students are struggling in 2 or more. Now, we know that our students are very capable, that they did very well in their first year of college. They did very well coming in from their high school experiences. But both the transition from going from a kind of hybrid, potentially online modality onto an on-campus environment, getting reaccustomed to that, that was just a normal experience of students struggling at university. This is something that is fairly common that we see. We ask students that are struggling in courses, what steps are they taking? And this is all the survey that we send out to students. We get a lot of feedback back. Over the years, we get between 60 to 80% of students that respond to this survey. Importantly, when they respond to the survey, we get them resources directed right to them, personalized based on their responses. But we ask students, what are you doing? We find that 84% are doing the homework, so that's good. Okay, they're doing that self-directed work outside the classroom, and so that's a positive sign. Of course, we have questions about the 16% that aren't. It's one of our top recommendations is students will start to engage with that work. Fewer students are doing the readings. And the reason why that we see that is that the homework is often graded. There's an instructor that's asking for it. And so there's a compliance aspect to that. But on the completing readings part, a lot of that is going to be self-initiated. And so for some of our students that are struggling courses, they're not self-initiating and completing those readings on their own. About 35% that are struggling in a course aren't doing that part of it, the reading part. The next two areas are areas that we think that students can have a lot of take a lot of proactive steps in doing. And it's also something that when you see your students struggling or having an issue with their course, these are my top recommendations for them to consider doing if you're pretty confident that they're reading and doing the homework. The first is consulting with a professor. Believe it or not, when a student is struggling in a course, only about a fifth of them are reaching out to the instructor to describe that they're having a hard time and that they're struggling. Now, from the instructor's point of view, they scan their course and they scan the students' course. What they see is a normal thing happening. Students struggling, students doing okay. For them, nothing is registering because it's as they expect. They taught term after term. That's what they see. What they need to have is that unique piece of information that only your student can provide. That says, hey, it's not normal for me. I'm struggling. I'd like some help. And so please encourage your students to be let's get this number up. 1 out of 5 is not good enough, especially if a student is struggling with the course. Go to those office hours, connect with those professors. I think a big lesson learned from being online for the past year is faculty awareness of student issues and willingness to help went through the roof. There was a real sense of compassion that developed in our faculty. It was already high, got even higher over the last year. And so I think students will find a really good opportunity to connect with their faculty. Later this evening, we'll talk a little bit more about seeking academic support, and that'd be my next recommendation. Start to figure out what kinds of academic support are going to be attached to the class. Academic support today are either by discipline, by subject, or by just the academic skill of being a good student. And I'll talk more about that in a few moments. But look here, again, 1 out of 5 students that are struggling in a course, they have a problem right in front of them, are doing a very obvious thing, which is to go seek academic support. We got to get that number up. And so as you're looking to support your students through the back half of this fall semester, that'd be a spot that I would want to direct them. All right, Brianna, back to you.
Thanks. So what's ahead for your students? This year, in year 1 at AU, what we are stressing to students is the importance of exploring. So we want them to explore all of the available resources, explore all of the available academic programs, exploring different study methods, exploring different kinds of wellness habits, and seeing which ones work for them and which ones they get to stick. And exploring what it means to be a self-advocate, along with exploring the person that they are becoming. They've got a lot of exploration going on in their first year and a lot of learning about their new environment on campus, how to navigate it, how to advocate for themselves, and how to become the person that they are interested in becoming. Once they have finished their first year, the first year advising staff will be handing them off to their major advising units. And in that year, what they're going to do is they're taking the exploration that they did in year 1 and having that pay off by taking that information about what they've learned about themselves, about what they've learned about AU, about what they've learned about themselves at AU, and they refine it into decisions about all kinds of things, which we will talk about on the next slide. So the first thing that they are going to probably be very interested in refining a decision on and ultimately deciding is their major. Students will declare majors at the end of their second year at AU. They will also begin to explore study abroad opportunities and plan that into their overall graduation plan with their major advisor. They're going to explore internship opportunities with their new major unit, look at the Career Center as a source of inspiration and assistance, as well as their faculty who are very well connected within the DC region. And then finally, they will begin to really look at research opportunities. So they've learned in this first year how to connect with faculty, and we are working with them to self-advocate and get into their faculty's office hours. They're going to take that learning, and then they're going to develop that into partnerships with faculty to work on their own research projects.
Is it on me now, Brianna?
Go for it, Jimmy.
All right. Hey, before we go to this next slide, I wanted to get just a clarification on a point. Could you repeat again for first year students how they get their advisors for year 2?
Yeah,
when that
absolutely.
happens? Yeah, I know it's in the future, but yeah, folks are curious about that.
Yeah, in the spring, we are going to be starting that connection point with their major advisors. So we will be introducing the students to their advisors. The advisors will be introducing themselves to the students over that first summer. So this coming June, July, and August, they will be getting a lot of intentional outreach from their major advisor. And so, the school year may have ended, but our work with students will continue over that first summer in getting really connected with their major unit and having their major advisor learn all about them.
Yeah. And alongside that process, I mean, your student is going to be registering for the second year with their first year advisor, their instructor advisor, and that'll be done and completed, by in April, right? I believe that's when it happens. And then from that point, what happens is, okay, you got your schedule. Well, that's just the start. How do you continue to get involved and integrated into the school college community? Mind you, that's already been happening. There's events all throughout the spring, where they're getting open houses, and opportunities to connect with the school and college of their major. So it's Brianna, you called it a handoff earlier. It's more of a hug, like all throughout the spring. Really, it's a really connected process through that period. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go to the next slide here. All right, so I wanted to just, again, talk about some things, and I want to start to discuss and maybe normalize some of the things that we're seeing with our students as they head into the second half of this semester. First, let's talk about some common concerns. Okay, when we look at students in the first year and also year 2 and beyond, we find that the top concerns are pretty consistent. We're noticing that students are having some mild homesickness. There's anxiety about tests. We just cleared a midterm area, and that definitely elevated during that time. Again, we talked about students struggling in courses. There's financial worries, and this is interesting here. Often families will make a plan and be very confident about that plan coming into an academic year. But it's during the course of that year that sometimes that planning that made sense in the summer coming into this first semester, you can face some challenges. It kind of stresses that planning. What I find is that the plan is still solid, but I think students' sense of and families' sense of like, are we going to be okay? There's a sense of that doubt that'll come in, and that's natural. But I would say kind of stick with your plan, know your intention, get connected with the financial aid office and student accounts, and just make sure that there's full information all over the place. And even this financial worry piece is one that I see subside as the semester wears on. And then what we're seeing a lot of, and this has happened before in 2019, 2020, and now, is that it might seem to a student that they might be the only ones that might be struggling, making connections. Maybe they made a first round of friends, a second round of friends isn't coming. Maybe they don't want to go out and meet people, and they just want to be okay with that, but they're getting pressures from the family or the community to meet folks. Nevertheless, we see that at this time of the year, students are starting to have low evaluations of the social aspects of the college experience as well. Some numbers going to pop up. They're just in rank order of how important they were for students in year 1 versus year 2. And so that's just there for information. We're also noticing now that students come into their first or second year with a lot of intention and ambition about a particular major, but through coursework, through talking with people, through exploration, they start to question, am I in the right major? Do I think I want to switch? Again, that can feel like a pretty isolating experience, especially at a place like AU, where it seems like everyone knows exactly what they want to do, that it's very well defined, that everyone's crystal clear on that. Well, hey, here's the reality. The reality is that 20% of students change their major heading into their second year, 1 out of 5. And then actually, as time wears on, 42% of students who graduate do so in a different major than what they started with at AU. And so we have questions about exploration, trying new things, exploring through electives and that kind of stuff. All very normal, all very normal. And we see it happening in the first year, where students will make that definitive switch into another major, which is totally fine, totally supported. It's one of the beauties of the first year advising program is that students will never feel pressured to be just within a school or college. In that first year, they're actually encouraged to be very exploratory, as Brianna mentioned. And yet, what do we see? By the time they graduate, 4 out of 10 are graduating a major that was different than when they started with at AU. And this last piece here, I want to spend a little bit of time. This is looking kind of projecting out into the junior and senior year and beyond. We participate in a survey with colleague institutions across the country, and this was a survey of seniors. And we compared our results against other institutions of our type, so private research-intensive universities like ours. So seniors were asked, how often were you asked to combine ideas from different courses when completing assignments? And 80% of our seniors responded very often or often. That's 10 points higher than comparable institutions. And so I know for many people on the call, you're working with students in their first year. I wanted to give you a little preview into what a future your student might be saying on this same survey and the kind of experience they could expect at AU. We also asked students, the survey asked students, were you connecting your learning to societal problems or issues? 79% of students at AU said that was happening very often or often, 17 points higher than our colleague institutions. The last one I'll talk about today is did you feel like your coursework included diverse perspectives in course discussions and assignments? Here's about 70%, 69% said so. That's 14 points higher than our comparable institutions. And so just give you a range here, some of this, like, what am I going to major in? Is it going to change my major in year 1? And at the end, when they're reflecting on their experience, what's that like? Just want to give you a span of some of what we see and what students are telling us across these various ways that we try to understand their experience. Okay, so sticking with me here, I wanted to talk about staying on track. And, as I think about even the title of this slide, I want to kind of disrupt for you the notion that staying on track is only for students who have fallen off track. You could very well be on track, be ahead of the track, running ahead of time. And all of these services we're talking about are both good in reaction to some sort of concern, but also a proactive or even sustaining step that students can take. And so I want to talk about some of the academic support services that we have on our campus. The first is academic coaching. Now, academic coaching is distinctive because it is the one academic support service we have on campus that is provided by a professional academic support team. Our campus has 2 types of academic support. The first time is related to professional staff providing that support. And again, with this support, what's unique about it is that it's not necessarily about a discipline or a subject. Instead, it's about the actual act of being a good learner, time management, organizational skills, reading and note-taking skills, and so forth. And so this is a real opportunity for students to just become a better learner and to learn some of these skill sets to show up really well in their classes. The other kind of supports that we offer are more discipline and subject-based, and these are all peer-to-peer tutoring offerings. These peer tutors are given extensive training. They go through rigorous selection processes. And in fact, these tutors are well supported. And in fact, I would encourage that if your student has a good experience in one of these, isn't already a tutor, and they want to help students, they want to have an on-campus job, I always want to plug that this is a great on-campus job opportunity, not only for the service that's provided, but I know the caliber of people that run these programs, and they're outstanding. And to be able to work in that community is really, it'd be a benefit to them. The first one I mentioned is our math stat lab. This is drop-in tutoring, schedule one-on-one tutoring sessions for all math and stats courses at the undergraduate level. These are offered on site in our Don Myers building. There's also tutoring appointments available online. The next is supplemental instruction. Now, this is different than the other offerings that we have. This is embedded tutoring inside our historically challenging classes. And so instead of a student having to go seek out tutoring or schedule an appointment, we've identified classes that already we think that students are going to struggle. If we look at the data, we get a sense of that. We ask students, we get a sense of that. And then what we do is we place a tutor in that class. That tutor attends class, holds sessions just for those that section of that class, builds a relationship with them. And it's a really strong coinciding piece to what the instructor is trying to do in there. We call that supplemental instruction. Now, these are predetermined, and so you can do the schedule of these online, and we'll drop in a couple links to these academic support resources. You can do some exploration on your own. And the second last one I want to talk about is peer-assisted student support. This is our PATH program. This is one-on-one tutoring for selected courses and disciplines such as accounting, biology, chemistry, economics. And here, this is just one-on-one tutoring. So again, we've identified discipline areas where students have struggled in the past. And in addition to embedding tutoring, which we have particular sections, we also provide one-off specialized one-on-one support for tutoring, and that's our peer-assisted student support program. And the last is the Writing Center, helping with one-on-one sessions for all things writing. And these appointments all happen online at this point. We have a location at the Bender Library, but we are doing these appointments online based on student feedback that really went well in the past. Hours for these services, availability, how to schedule, all that is available on our website, which we'll drop into the chat. And importantly, I want to mention each service is free and open to all students. So it's part of coming to AU. There is no additional fee to access these services. And so highly encourage your students to figure out which one connects well to their need and then go to seek it. All right, so that's that part. Okay, Brianna, back to you. Let's close out with some partnering with parents.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. In addition to all of these resources that are at your students' fingertips, you are also a very important resource. And partnering with you is incredibly important in supporting your student. Jimmy, I think you can put all of them up at one time. Would be fine. So one of the first things that we think is very important is that you understand and support AU's mission and values in order to help your student understand the mission and values. So our mission at AU is to advance knowledge, foster intellectual curiosity, build community, and empower lives of purpose, service, and leadership. Our values include integrity, excellence, human dignity, community, diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusive excellence, and free inquiry and seeking truth. These are the values and the missions that all of our departments and all of our services are standing behind. And so it will be important for your student to know what values we hold and what values we're nurturing in them. Another very important way that you can partner with us is just knowledge of resources and encouraging your student to access those resources. So this is part one of really learning what are the resources, how can I get my student connected, and helping your student to understand the importance of building those relationships with faculty and staff who can support them. Another really important way that you can support your students is nurturing AU pride. This is a really important component for feeling like you belong in any kind of community, is feeling pride in your community. And hearing them, having them hear you have pride in the fact that they are part of our AU community can help them a lot. Another really important part, and this is really difficult, is knowing when to listen and empower your student to build those self-advocacy skills and when to take those active steps to support your student. It can be really hard to get that phone call at 8 o'clock at night, panicked because they have a paper due the next day and they don't know what to do. That is anxiety producing for anybody, student, parent, all of them. Making sure that they get connected to resources, they know what the resources are. We are dedicating our first year advising to making sure that students are connected to these resources and do know where their resources are so that we can reduce those 8 p.m. night before it's due panicked calls. And then lastly, encouraging and supporting your student to embrace discomfort as part of the learning process. They are not going to feel comfortable at first with all of the new learning that we are giving them and all of the new opportunities. If they did feel completely comfortable, they wouldn't be growing. And so this discomfort is really, really important part of their growth and their learning, and having you affirm that for them can be really helpful. Before we all succeeded at something, we failed a lot. And so that will be important for your student to hear that, you know, the stumbles along the way can be really great developmental and learning opportunities for everybody.
Okay. So that's the end of our presentation. I think we're going to move towards some questions. Karen, we'll look to you to lead us on that one.
Yeah, great. Thank you both. I think that was a phenomenal overview, and I think it answered some of the questions. We've got some great questions that have come in live tonight. And so let me start. This might sound like kind of basic, but I think a lot of families might have this question. And I think Brianna, I think you're well positioned for this. Can you talk about the difference between the courses at different levels, right? So what's the difference between a 200 level class and a 300 level class?
Yeah, this is a very, very common question. It's super common amongst our students as well. So often when I'm working with a student, oftentimes I will point out the fact that 300 level classes may not have a lot of stated prerequisites, but they have implied prerequisites. It's kind of dirty pool because they don't tell you what the prerequisite is, but it's implied in the fact that it's a 300 level class. And so what the real difference between a 300 level class and a lower level class is that professor is assuming a base level of knowledge in that discipline in order to carry your student through the learning that's happening in that specific class. And so they're relying on the knowledge that they've learned in previous classes to take into this class and use it and incorporate it into this new subject matter. And so it will be important that our first year students are typically sticking with the 100 and 200 levels. They don't have that base level yet. That is what we're giving them in their first year. There are caveats to that. A student can test into a 300 level, so a language class or a math class specifically. There are placement tests, and students who have that foundational knowledge already secured from high school can place into the higher level language or math classes.
I remember as an undergrad trying to take on some of those like 600 level classes, which is graduate level, right? I mean,
Yes.
that is a push, and you got to meet some requirements, and you need to know what you're getting yourself into. But that's at the upper class sort of side of things. Thanks, Brianna.
Yeah.
Brianna, I think there's a number of questions too, especially, you know, a lot of folks in our audience tonight, their students are first years, and so are maybe still wary to declare a major, right? They are still very much doing that exploration. So can you talk us through a little bit about more what it looks like for a student who maybe hasn't declared at the end of their first year? Mm-hmm. What does that advisement look like moving forward?
Yeah. First of all, I want to celebrate all of these students who may be in that category. It's a brave category to be in because it will feel like they're very much alone. And what I just told my AUX1 class 2 weeks ago when we covered this in class is nobody has it figured out right now. From this side of the advising desk, I can promise you, nobody has it figured out. Everybody's trying to figure it out. The fact that you have stated publicly that you don't have it figured out is super brave, and I really want to celebrate that. And then how we do advising is we help the student to investigate and research all of the academic options, and we will walk them through where are your major interests. What classes do you like to take? Reading course descriptions. So we will do that work in the first year. It may be that they still have, 3 or 4 majors that they're like, I think one of these, but I'm not 100%. If 3 or 4 of those fall within the same school or college, they will move into that major advising unit in that school or college. And then the major advisor will take over to help them refine that thinking. If it spans a lot of disciplines, they will go into the College of Arts and Sciences advising unit, where they have specialized advisors who can help students who have a wide ranging array of interests to help narrow those interests down.
Thank you. I think that's really helpful. Jimmy, I want to turn to you. I know that I've got a family asking a question here, and I know that they're not the only one who's asked for this. So if we've got students who say identify as being on the autism spectrum, are there any sort of clubs or groups or services in particular that parents can help to sort of steer their students towards?
Interesting. Yeah, it's a good question. So if the student is looking for involvements and engagements at centers or is explicitly about that part of their identity, yes, so that there's a pathway forward there. Now, if it's about that student, being on the autism spectrum, and then kind of with that consideration, wanting to be able to kind of engage effectively with opportunities on campus, these are 2 separate questions. I'd be curious, to know which one we're talking about. Now, if it's about wanting to connect and kind of center that autism identity, the best contact is going to be with our Disability Support Services office. We have disability access advisors who will be able to work with them to situate that part of their identity into the mix and say, okay, is that the target of what we're looking for engagement, or do we want to, through the lens of that identity, be able to get you engaged in various different types of things? So as I'm thinking about it, I think that that's probably the best place to go. Disability Support Services, connect with the Disability Access Advisor, even if there's not even a previous relationship there. So this could be a brand new conversation, that's fine. And just kind of get some shared space to be able to understand how do I negotiate this part of who I am with what I'm trying to do here at the university.
Thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate it. Families, I am putting into the chat the website for our disability support services on campus.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, just to have a conversation is completely fine. The website will feel very kind of accommodations and all that kind of stuff. Conversations are absolutely okay, and the Disability Access Advisor team are your stop for that.
That's great. Thanks. Brown, I'm going to go back to you. I think we've got a couple folks whose students that maybe want to explore some things, some coursework, like say they think they might want to do like a school public affairs major, but they might want to try out some sciences. Can you talk about what the core curriculum covers and how that helps students sort of explore options across curriculums?
Yeah, definitely. In the first year, students will take a set of courses. AUX1, AUX2, they will take their complex problems course. This is a course that is multidisciplinary in its offering and looks at a specific problem from multiple perspectives. Those are really good courses for students who have multiple interests to take and get a feeling for what it's like to look at a problem from various discipline viewpoints. They will also take their first writing requirement and their first quantitative literacy requirement. Throughout their time at AU, they take a slate of courses that are called Habits of Mind. There are 5 habits of mind, and these courses will train students to look at the world through various perspectives. So there's a natural and scientific inquiry perspective to look at the world. There is a social science kind of perspective. There's a creative aesthetic perspective. And those classes can be pretty helpful in finding majors as well. Sometimes though, taking a class is not the best way to find a major. And the reason that I tell students this is because oftentimes that first class, that intro class in a major, is going to be super broad. It may not delve into all of the interest areas that your particular students has in that particular discipline, but classes coming up in the major would do that. And so what we do with students is we have them really investigate course descriptions and make sure that they are really excited about courses coming up in majors. We also have them do informational interviewing with faculty who are in those fields and in those disciplines, asking questions like, if I'm a student in this major, what kinds of things do I learn? What kinds of things do I study? What kinds of opportunities are there for internships? Where do students intern when they do this major? Where do students in this major kind of go to from there, from graduating from AU? Is that something that I might be interested in doing? We also get them connected with the Career Center, and the Career Center can hook them up with alumni, other people in various careers and fields to do those kinds of informational interviews with those people too. And so asking people in a field that your student might be interested in going, what was your path into this field? What did you study in undergrad? So all of those things can really help to coach a student through that decision-making process and get to a place where they feel really comfortable and excited about their major.
Awesome, thank you. I'm not forgetting Jimmy, but I'm gonna come back to you, Brianna, because I know that the AUX course spends a lot of time helping students to sort of plan for their spring registrations if they're first-year students in particular. So I know it was challenging for a lot of our first year students to figure out the registration process from home and without advisors over the summer as they were getting started. Can you talk about what it looks like in the AUX class, about how you're helping to prepare those students to start registering at the end of November?
Yeah, absolutely. Class 6 in AUX 1 was dedicated solely to registration readiness. So what are the steps that you need to take in order to get ready to register? What are your requirements? How do you put requirements together in a way that makes sense and hits all the marks that you need to hit for this year? We have resources on what is the template for what you should be taking in your second semester based on a major that you're interested in. We also have templates for students who are exploring different majors and haven't settled on one. And then the other thing that we did is had students go ahead and open up their laptop. Usually not something that we do in AUX 1 because it is a very community-centered course, a lot of dialogue, and we don't want students deep into their tech. But we had them open up their laptops and make an appointment with their first year advisor for very close to their registration date. If students have questions along the way as they're getting ready for that registration appointment, they see their first year advisor weekly. in their AUX1 class. There's an opportunity to ask their instructor questions. There's an opportunity to ask their peer facilitator questions. Both their instructor and their peer facilitator have multiple hours per week of open office hours that they can just drop into and ask their questions with no appointment necessary. So we try everything possible to make sure that we are as accessible to students, at least once a week in class, they'll see us. And that they have all of the information that they need in order to put together a schedule that makes sense for them.
That's great, thanks. And I know, Brianna, you and I have talked about this too. And I've gone in to see what the advising schedules and availability look like for each of the first year advisors at a number of points. And I can always find some appointments available for first year advisors. I think it's probably worth reiterating for families on this call that we can see these appointment availabilities, and sometimes students will say they can't get an appointment with their advisor. I think that the nuance here is that they may be looking for appointments with their advisors on a schedule that's ideal for them. And so they've really got to figure out where does their priority land, right? Is it about, hey, I'm supposed to be at a club meeting, and so I don't want to take the next available appointment, or, I think the point that I'm trying to stress here for families is that oftentimes there's far more availability than a student interprets because of how they're weighing their sort of commitments on campus, right?
Yeah, I think that's important, Karen, actually. And something else that I think is important for families to know is that across campus, across all 4 years, advising units do not have a lot of outside meetings during registration time. That time, our calendars are open to student appointments, and we prioritize the student appointments. And so, typically we will have all campus advisor meetings, or specialized meetings with a unit to learn about something. We don't do that during registration season because we want to be as available as possible for students before their registration date.
That's great. Jimmy, I want to come back to you because I think we were having this conversation earlier and families have been asking questions. When a student may not be thriving necessarily in terms of their academic record is going to convey, right? Maybe their grades are not where mom and dad are hoping that they would be.
Right.
And so I've got a question from a parent who's asking, what do we do when our student is resistant to suggestions?
Gotcha.
For seeking services, like taking advantage of AU's tutoring and the supplemental instruction and the office hours? Like, how can parents most effectively help coach their students at this time?
Right. Yeah. And that's tough. I mean, we often talk as colleagues, what's the magic wand that we wish we could wave? And it would be this avoidant behavior. We call it, where there's an issue here, potentially with a small one getting bigger mid-semester, it's an issue now. And there's this behavior that we see all the time. It's an avoidant behavior. So it's not for lack of ideas. The parent or family member is connected, offering those resources and supports. It really sits with that student. What we don't do at the university is to take away that student agency and choice. And so it's always going to reside in that student's ability to be able to take that step. And my goodness, it's an easy step. Click a link, click 2 links. In fact, academic coaching would be my recommendation here. Click 2 links, go to the website, schedule an appointment, find the appointment, and then get situated. Can we get students to maybe, instead of seek academic support, can you take these 2 steps? Can I send you this specific link? It's teed up for you. Find one that works your schedule. I would say for the parent, maybe think about that offer for help that's very specific, very specific. I heard about this support. It sounds really great. Here's the direct link there. Just find the time that matches up and make that connection. The other place that I would recommend is that if it's just a first year student, to find a minute either before or after their AUX1 class, and then just give them the line to say, right? Say this to your instructor. Hey, can we find some time for me to get my academic life in order? Or hey, whatever is in your student's language, put it in that phrase, like literally put it in quotes and say this to your instructor advisor either before or after class. If they say that one thing, if they click that one link, you can't imagine what comes back. The offers for help, the conversations, the support, the arms around them, all that kind of stuff. But they got to say just that one line or click that one link. And if you keep running into trouble, then there might be other issues at play. And in that case, for something maybe kind of specialized, and connect with one of us on here, and say, hey, I've done everything you said, even that very specific thing that you described, I need help. And it could be a situation where we need to go a little bit deeper and try a little bit harder. That's usually not the case. It usually is just that avoidant behavior. But if it is something more serious, then you have 3 great people here that you can connect with to take any kind of next step to discuss a different plan than what we just talked about.
Thanks, Jimmy. I know this comes up a lot, and I've shared with some parents before. I had the chance to teach for about 9 years at another school in Washington. And one of the things that became very evident to me in working with these undergrads was they're still so focused and motivated to meet parent expectations. And that's great on one hand, because don't we all love when our students are trying and giving their best? But on the other hand, I think it often made them very afraid to share with their parents what was going on. And it made them kind of terrified of disappointing their parents. And so this compounded whatever stresses they were having about mastering the content or working successfully with their peers on group projects, because over their head was always, well, how's my parent going to respond to this? And so what I want to stress from the parent and family engagement part of this is to underscore to you families, you have such influence on your students still. It may not always feel that way, but we have data that shows that they still look very much to you to set the tone and the expectations. And so sometimes the student stress that we're hearing about is because they're just worried about pleasing you. So I think these are opportunities to have real conversations with your students where you signal that it's okay to not come in mastering everything, and to just seek the resources that they need. And sometimes if you're getting that resistance behavior that Jimmy's talking about, there may be some other conversations to have at a deeper level to try to uncover the layers. But my team and I were happy to help you through this as well. And my email address is here on the screen for you. I think there's some other questions that have been coming up tonight. I don't know, Brianna or Jimmy, both of you could probably address this, whichever one wants this, you can take this, but about whether a parent can see their students' transcripts and view their progress.
Oh, me, pick me.
Yes, please.
I can field this one. So there is a federal law that kicks in once a student turns 18 that protects and gives privacy to all of their records. So what this means is that third parties don't have access to records that the university keeps on the student. Families, you are third parties. So there are ways to get information. I would say that the best way is asking your student. If you have a student who might not want to share that information, you can get access to their transcripts by going through the university registrar's office. There's a form that you'll need to fill out. You'll need to prove dependency in a couple of different ways, but it is possible to get access to their transcripts. What is not possible is getting access to their current grades. So for current grades, you are pretty reliant on your student to share that information with you. I will say that I have worked over my 28 years at AU, I have worked with a lot of students who have been in academic crisis or difficulty. And some of the most effective partnering with families for those students has come in the form of creating a team to support that student and having that student be a very active part of that team. It usually doesn't work if the student is not an active part of the team, but I have definitely had advising appointments where, a student who is in academic crisis has invited their parent in to have that conversation with their academic advisor. We do put the onus on the student to make that invitation because it usually works best when that student has that agency to make that decision to include the family in the partnership with the school or college.
I think that's great. I feel like sometimes it is hard for a student to find the language, and sometimes it helps to have the advisor present to kind of lay everything out for all parties involved. And everybody clearly here is very much invested in student success. All right, Brianna, I think this one's coming back to you again. Let's go to like the sort of the end of the semester kind of scenarios. Let's say we've got a student who maybe has been encountering more difficulty than they anticipated, and maybe they're not coming to this realization very early, and maybe it's a little too late for some of our interventions. What are the options that remain for students, say this semester, to withdraw from a class?
Yes, very important. So the last day to withdraw from a fall class is coming up. It is November 5th. There are a lot of different kinds of considerations that go into this decision at this point in the semester. And so I would absolutely want your student to get connected with the financial aid office, with their first year advisor, if they're not a first year student, with their major advisor, and talk through the decision points for making that decision. Towards the end of the semester, once we go past November 5th, Karen, you're right. A lot of times it's too late for our interventions. We could have helped earlier. Not a lot we can do at that point. That is where the grade replacement policy comes in handy. And so at AU, degree-seeking students can request a course grade replacement for 2 eligible courses at any time during their undergraduate study, if they've earned a grade of C- or lower in that class. And then the trick with this grade replacement policy is once they repeat that class the second time, only that second grade gets calculated into their GPA. The first grade still appears visually on their transcript, but mathematically it's taken out of the equation. So students have 2 opportunities to use this grade replacement policy. We probably wouldn't want them to blow it all in the first year. And so connecting with their first year advisor would be really, really important in order to strategize. How do you make best use of that grade replacement policy if you find yourself in that situation?
Very helpful. I think, Brianna, back in the day, when you and I were undergrads at AU, this was referred to as freshman forgiveness. Right.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. And back in the day, it was only for your first year. AU has become more expansive, and now over the course of your 4 years, you can choose 2 courses to do this with.
That's great. Thanks. Yep. I think we had some other questions. Let me go back and see. So in general, because we don't only have first year students on this call tonight, what does this window look like for spring registration? What are the dates looking like?
I just pulled them up on my second screen. And so let's see. Spring 2022 registration opens on November 1st for continuing undergrads. The way the registration dates are determined is by the number of completed credits that your student has. And so the students with the most completed credits will register first. The students with the least completed credits will register not first, last, if you will. The reason that AU does this is because the thinking is a student close to graduation has very specific courses that they need to take, and we want them to be able to get those courses. A student just starting at AU has a lot of opportunities to get courses that they want or need in order to graduate. And so the first year students will register towards the middle of November, and this is very normal. It's usually not that much of an issue because the first year students are taking a very different slate of courses than seniors and juniors are taking. And so first year students are really just kind of working against each other in terms of finding classes to take. And they probably are going to need to be flexible with days and times, maybe not taking this course that they really want to take in the spring, but maybe taking it in the fall instead. And their first year advisor will talk them through all of those decision points and encourage as much flexibility as possible.
That's great, thanks. I had a question, maybe Jimmy can help us with this one. Now because of COVID, we're in all uncharted territory, really, with this notion of having some classes in person and some of our classes are online, and sometimes the in-person classes go online. Jimmy, can you talk a little bit about why AU has made the decision that we are not trying to set up every class to be able to do all things, right? Like why we can't just like flip a switch to like have a class be recorded and available for students who don't show up in person, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so just to put a fine point on that, I mean, the undergraduate experience at AU, our courses are, I mean, predominantly online. What's a better word than that? In person, nearly exclusively in person. It is a rare instance that a class will be online. Why? Because we have such an investment on being here. We know the value of an in-person experience, and that's the investments that we made. Now, there are classes, some of them are based on accommodations that faculty might need, some of them based on the size of the course. We have some commitments to have the largest of our courses online, but the vast majority of our courses are going to be in person. So that is the dominant experience of an AU student. Now, now where does that leave us? Okay, so faculty are being encouraged to create as robust an in-person experience as they can if their course is an in-person on AU course. Now, faculty, of course, have their discretion to be able to add to that experience in various different ways, but that's not at the kind of at the recommendation or at the pushing of the campus. We want faculty to invest in that on-campus or on that on-campus experience. So here's where we're at. When students have to miss a course, students have been missing courses for decades. We encourage students to reach out to the faculty member, let them know that they're going to be out, seek the materials they missed, and kind of take advantage of that the old-fashioned way. And again, we've done this for those of us that went to college. This experience. Now, there are some instructors that are offering some of what they do online, but that's going to be on an instructor by instructor basis. It's not going to be the expectation that instructors are doing concurrent, both an in-person and online version, because these classes aren't being recorded, because there isn't simulcasting ability, because it is prioritizing that face-to-face experience. It's just too much, I think, in this moment with these commitments we have to be able to do that. And so if a student is going to miss, either planned or unexpectedly, the key thing is just get in touch with the instructor, find out what's missed, connect with TAs, connect with any kind of other supports around that course, and then just move forward from there. Missing a course for a good reason, a planned reason, being sick, it's not the end of the world. We can get through that. Students get through that, and students are doing a good job of that this year. So with good planning, good communication, just kind of the ways we always have done it, I think the students can find their way forward.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. I've posted in the chat, families, we've got a full schedule of webinars that are posted. You can register as soon as you're ready. You can see what's upcoming between now and the end of the academic year. Families will have sessions that specifically help walk you through how you can support your students in the internship and job search. We've got a session coming up about AU abroad, because yes, it's possible for your student to have more than one major and get their internships and go overseas, all at AU, and we'll walk you through what that looks like. We're going to end the year with some more exciting sessions. I'm thrilled to be able to share with you. We'll talk, it's not even on the schedule yet, so this is your preview teaser, that in April we'll be able to talk more about how you can help your students find those great research opportunities for undergraduate research to connect with faculty or to pursue it on their own. So I want to encourage you, please, to follow up with me. You've got our emails up on the screen should you need us. And I want to thank you so much for supporting your students in everything that you're doing so far and for showing up to join us this evening. Thanks to you and to all of my panelists for tonight. Thank you.